This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're about to have a very, very busy fall with upgrades to High Sierra, upgrading the Mac OS to High Sierra with iOS 11. TV OS upgrades, Watch OS upgrades. It's going to be crazy. That means we need a little help in making sense of all this and getting it done right. One of the big ones, of course, is going to be upgrading to High Sierra because the Mac is the hub for pretty much everything we do. That's why Joe Kissell is here, and he's going to talk to us about his new book, Take Control of Upgrading to High Sierra. Mac OS High Sierra, Joe, or High Sierra?
High Sierra.
Hi, Sierra. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's great to see you. So much for being here.
Hi, Sierra.
Yeah.
I think I could have done better with the delivery, but you know, as you and I were talking before the show began, I've been experiencing emotions today because of things which, by the time this comes out, people have already read about. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Good. I've been experiencing emotions, and I've been releasing those emotions in articles.
Yeah.
And
happily, we should say none of which had to do with High Sierra. So that's
none
good.
of this has to do with High Sierra.
Yeah.
So a little distracted, you know, and maybe not completely on my game, but we'll power through this.
Joe, you being just a little off your game is 5 times more than most people are when they're on their game, so I'm not worried. Okay. So first of all, you've done upgrading books for a long time, but you were doing them as a Take Control author. Now you're Take Control publisher and author. So I'm curious to have you talk about what has changed from your perspective, but also what has changed in your decisions to try to cover this upgrade path.
I've been doing this since 2003. Okay, this is my 11th Take Control of Upgrading to something book.
Wow.
Number 11. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and you're right. This is my first time doing it as the publisher, and so I'm smiling because for a really, really trivial reason. Because when you ask me what changes, like the first thing that goes through my mind was, all right, so Tanya Angst has edited all of these books throughout the years, including this one. So just because she's not the Take Control editor-in-chief anymore doesn't mean that she's out of the picture. She's still an editor working for us on Take Control books, and I asked her to edit this one too because she has the most experience. She has edited 10 of this particular book before, and so what I was thinking was, well, one difference was that I get to overrule any editorial decisions that I don't like. So she says, no, I really think you ought to change this to a bulleted list, or you ought to do this. You're like, yeah, I really don't think I'm going to, but thanks. And I didn't do that very often. I did that like once or twice. But it's just a little bit weird because there's a little change in that dynamic, because normally what would happen is, like in a Take Control book, like the editor does a pass, like the editor and the author go back and forth, and then what was happening before was that she, as the editor-in-chief, would do a series editor pass. So she would make sure that all the stuff in the title is sort of consistent with other Take Control titles and sort of do little stylistic things that the editor might have missed. Well, now that's my job. And so I am sort of like the later editor in the chain now. So I like write it as the author, and then she edits it, and then I edit it as like the super edit. It's a weird thing. But like one of the things that I threatened to do for years and years, but I was never allowed to do, was I don't want to capitalize the word web. Okay, I want for the word web, as in World Wide Web. When it's just web, like I want it to be a lowercase w, because that's what the cool kids are doing these days. And this is what the Chicago Manual of Style is now doing. They have decided, no less a publication than the Chicago Manual of Style says, you know what, we used to insist that you capitalize web, but we're over that now. Everybody's just lowercasing it. Let's lowercase it. Not only that, let's make website and web page one word instead of two words. So I'm like, okay, I want to do that too. I want to stop making web a capital like standalone word. But I was like a little bit nervous to do, like it's just like it's a thing we've always done, right? And I didn't want to like I'm going to assert my publisher authority and just plow over the old style guide. But actually, as Tanya sent back her first edit pass, the first time she came to the word web capitalized, she's like, "Didn't you want to change this?" And I'm like, well, since you mentioned it, yeah, I kind of do want to change that. So I changed them all, and I changed our style guide. So that's going to be like a new thing from now on. This is obviously the most important thing that everybody needs to know about upgrading to High Sierra is that, web is not capitalized anymore. Sorry, but I'm just sort of like, I'm speaking to my experience. Anyway.
Little giddy, Joe. Little giddy.
I know. But to actually answer your question, for years I've been saying, Apple kind of has this thing down. Like installing an upgrade to a new operating system isn't really scary anymore. It's not hard anymore. It doesn't cost money anymore. It's almost not very interesting because almost all of the issues and problems that used to exist in the installation process, well, Apple fixed them. And they've improved their installer consistently. And then they build on a process that works really well. And so I'm going through the book and I'm like, oh, well, I don't have to put this warning in there anymore. I don't have to mention this exception. It just kind of mostly works. And so as I say, and I've said this the past few years too, and I will say it again now, if you've already applied macOS updates a few times, you feel technically confident, you have great backups, don't buy my book. No, really, don't buy my book. I'm happy to take your money, but you don't need the book. You can do this. It's going to be fine. Most people are going to have a completely easy and painless process. They're going to download the software. They're going to click, enter the password. They're going to wait. The new operating system will be there, and it'll be fine. This book, and its 10 predecessors, are for kind of the exceptions to the rule. So if you don't have great backups, or if you have never installed an upgrade to macOS, or if you did, but the last time you did it was like for Snow Leopard or like a long time ago, and so you haven't seen them recently, or if there's something unusual about your system, or if you are just uneasy about the process and you would like for an expert to hold your hands and tell you about all the potential pitfalls and offer sort of preemptive troubleshooting advice, like how to avoid the problems that you might be able to avoid, but then also actual troubleshooting, like you did this and then you followed the instructions, but still something went wrong. How can you back out, or how can you solve that problem, or how can you deal with it? That's what this book is for. This book is the kind, friendly, gentle, don't worry about anything. We're going to go through all the steps. We're going to make sure you don't mess up, or if you do, or if Apple messes up, there will be a solution to this problem. So I don't want to misrepresent this as something like, well, every Mac user needs this. No, you really don't. Some people do, and some people might just feel more comfortable having it. And so because thousands of people buy these books every year, I keep writing them, and I'm happy to do that because I want to help. But most people probably don't need it. That said, there's one little thing this year. And this is the one thing that caused me to write the most new text for the book. And the one thing that I think is going to kind of make people pause and go, what about that? And that is the new file system, APFS. I'm sure I don't know, have we ever talked about this before?
I think we've circled around it occasionally. We knew it was coming, and it was on my list of things to ask you about, because it's probably one of the places I have just a little trepidation about.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute. So this is APFS for Apple File System, and alert viewers might notice that Apple File System should probably be abbreviated AFS instead of APFS, right? Except Apple was already using AFS for something else. Apple File Service, I think, was what it was. So like, oh, we can't use AFS. I guess we got to stick another letter in there. Let's stick in a P. So Apple has a long history of having weirdness in the names of their file systems. So like there was the hierarchical filing system, or HFS, but it was often referred to as macOS Standard. And then came along HFS Plus, which was referred to as macOS Extended. So you had these two names for the same thing, macOS Extended and HFS Plus. But then at a certain point, Apple started calling it, instead of macOS Extended, they called it OS 10 Extended. And then they said, no, let's not do that anymore. Let's go back to calling it macOS Extended. And then they said, let's actually ditch that altogether and come up with a totally new thing. So it's a new file system. And like, the file system isn't something you ever see, not something you're going to actively interact with. This is like the low level information about how stuff is stored on your disk or SSD. You're not going to see the file system as such. What you're going to see is the effects of the file system. So the effects are going to be that your Mac is less prone to losing data if there's a crash. It's safer. Some operations are going to be a lot faster, like duplicating a file in the Finder. Even if it's a multi-gigabyte file, it'll be almost instantaneous. That's cool. If you have a folder with like thousands and thousands of files in it, and you do a get info, that can take minutes for the Finder to calculate how large that folder is. But now with APFS, it's going to happen almost instantly. It has better security features. It has a different sort of encryption built in. It has lots of cool stuff. And some of the cool things will only sort of emerge over time as Apple adds features and third-party software adds access to these features. So you won't really see a lot of this stuff at the beginning, but it's a foundation and infrastructure that can be used to make your Mac faster and more secure and less prone to data loss. So those are all really great things. And in fact, anybody who has an iPhone or an iPad that has iOS 10 on it has already been using APFS for the last year. Because when Apple transitioned from iOS 9 to iOS 10, switching your file system over to APFS was part of that process, and most of us never even knew that. So from that point of view, it's a great thing, and it should just be invisible and seamless, and it's all good for most people, most of the time. But there could be some little exceptions to that. And one exception would be that if you have to use the same hard drive on both a Mac that's running High Sierra and a Mac that's running, let's say, El Capitan or Yosemite or an older OS, those older OSs, anything older than Sierra, won't be able to read your drive that's formatted as APFS. So there are some little kind of edge cases like that. Most people won't encounter them most of the time, but there will be some situations in which things that you would think would work won't work. Now, at this moment, we are at, I think, beta 7 or something. The final version of High Sierra is still in the future. We don't know exactly when. The fall sometime. And as of Beta 7, there are some computers, and including the one that I'm using to talk to you on, that do not support APFS yet. And like the installer doesn't even ask you. It used to in the early betas. Right now it doesn't. It doesn't ask you if you want to convert to APFS. It just either does if your computer supports it, or it doesn't if it doesn't. And you won't even know until you're running High Sierra and you say, did we switch to APFS? I'm not sure. Let's open up Disk Utility or something and find out. So it's a little bit weird in that way. And there will be some people for whom the installer won't do the expected thing, and it won't turn out to be what you want, and it'll be a little bit irritating to undo that. But anyway, that's something that that's one of those little gotchas that I talk about in the book. So if that's a concern of yours, that might be a reason to keep the book.
So I guess I have mixed feelings there about the decision they made on the installer. First of all, it sounds very typical Apple. They're going to do it for you the way that it needs to be done, and you're not going to have a choice necessarily.
Yeah.
Other than the issue you just mentioned, Joe, it sounds like you gave me some good reasons I want to do this. Are there any good reasons that I have a current 5K iMac, or just one generation back, that I would not want to do this? And that assumes that even I could, which may not be possible. But any reason I want to stick with that legacy stuff?
Well, third-party utilities, like disk utilities, disk repair utilities, things like that, will probably have to be updated to work with APFS. I don't know what would happen if you tried to use Disk Warrior, Drive Genius, or TechTool Pro, or something like that, like a current version on a drive that's formatted with APFS. It might be fine. You might lose all your data. I don't know. I've never tried that. Don't plan on trying.
Yeah, really.
So that could be possibly an issue. Anytime, at this moment in the beta process, Macs that only have spinning hard drives, that is, they don't have Fusion drives and they don't have SSDs, aren't currently compatible with APFS. I do expect that to change like any day now. But it seems as though there's something about APFS that Apple hasn't quite yet, that isn't quite so solid for machines that use hard drives. So if you do rely solely on hard drives, that might give you a reason to wonder about it. Even once Apple sorts that out, it might just feel not as solid. Of course, backups solve or allow. Backups can get you out of almost any mess. So since I have great backups, I'm not particularly worried. But it's there's also the fact that you're probably not going to have a choice. I don't know if Apple is going to bring back that checkbox in the final version of the installer that will let you opt out of it. I kind of expect they won't. So you might just kind of have to take what you get, and if it's the wrong thing, well, there's an obnoxious process that you could go through to undo it, but it really is obnoxious.
Sure, you listen. Here we go. We have to say the B word: backups. But so obviously, if I have my files backed up, I'm okay. I'm just sitting here thinking though about if something does go wrong, and I were to use something like Carbon Copy Cloner or Super Duper to try to restore my drive. Will I have to reformat my drive into the old OS, or?
Yeah. So you would either boot from your duplicate, or you would boot from into recovery mode or whatever. Boot from some volume that is not the one that you want to undo. You'd have to reformat that as HFS plus and then restore your clone. So if you just try to restore the clone without changing the file system, then you'll get the old data, but in the new file system, that's probably not what you want.
I know we've talked about this before, and there are people that swear by it, and there's some that swear at it. You think this is a good time to maybe start rebuilding your system from scratch? Or a better than normal time?
I have a page, exactly one page in my book about what I call the Nuke and Pave option. So this is, don't do the in-place upgrade. Don't use the setup assistant, the migration assistant, that copies all of your stuff from a backup. Just erase the disk, install a version copy of High Sierra, and then manually reinstall all of your apps, manually re-enter all of your license codes, manually reset all of your preferences, manually copy all of your documents back from a backup, manually. And my feeling about that is, hell no, life is too short. Like, I can't really say I've ever even been tempted to do this in years and years and years, because the likelihood that the net result of doing all that is going to leave you better off than just doing a migration is really, really tiny. And it's for a person like me who has like hundreds of apps and everything just customized to within an inch of its life, it would be so time consuming and so painful. And then you're going to say, oh, there's that one app that I really use, but I don't have the license code, or it was authorized in the old Mac and it's not authorized, and maybe the company's gone out of business, or like there's something little thing like that is going to happen. And I'm going to be like, oh crap, I really should have just migrated or restored. So for me, I just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it if I felt I had any reasonable option. Now, if you are not like me, if you don't have very many apps, if most of your documents are already stored in iCloud Drive or Dropbox or some one of these places where they're just going to resync automatically anyway, if most of your apps that you do have are purchased from the App Store and you can just click, and they're reinstalled and the preferences are reset and stuff like that, then maybe that's not such a bad idea. But at the same time, if that describes your situation, your need to do a Nuke and Pave reinstall also is probably a lot less. The thing that would tempt you to do that is having all this weird custom stuff that you want to get rid of and replace. So I'm not, if you decide that you want to do that, I'll still be your friend. It's okay. I'm not going to judge you as a person. I'll judge you a little bit, but not that much, really. But I just feel like you probably have better things to do with your time. Bake some cookies instead.
Yeah,
send me some.
Yeah, you won't be seeing these friends for a while because they'll be too busy reinstalling.
That's right.
I mean, that would be horrible. Okay, so I mean, you make me you put my mind at ease a bit on some of this. Oh, I know. I wanted to specifically ask about File Vault. You mentioned a new encryption on the new system. Is this a new version of File Vault, or is File Vault now rebuilt for APFS?
Yes and no. So what you see as a user will be exactly the same. The File Vault, tab and security and privacy preference pane looks the same. The switches to turn it on and off, to set it up, those act the same. If you have a Mac that's already encrypted with File Vault and you run the High Sierra installer, it'll still be encrypted with File Vault when you're done. Behind the scenes, High Sierra, because of the way APFS is designed, it uses a different underlying encryption mechanism. It is going to be invisible to you as a user. Apple's not using core storage anymore. Core storage is not a feature of APFS, and core storage is sort of the way the old File Vault worked. So it does things differently, but as far as the user experience goes, it will seem to be the same. Now, as I sort of hinted at earlier, APFS intrinsically has additional encryption features that can allow you to encrypt individual files and folders and to use to do sort of more fancier encryption things with them. But those have not yet been exposed to users in the current beta of High Sierra, and I don't know if or when they will be. It could be that's something that we see in, Mac OS Death Valley years from now. And I don't know. Or it could be that that's something that we see in a third-party app that you can buy. So I'm not really sure how users will get access to these things. All I know is that in the latest beta that I have seen, there's no that hasn't been exposed yet.
MacVoices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software for the Mac and iOS. Find out about how their amazing utilities can make you more productive at smilesoftware.com. If you are looking to get into automation on the Mac but are a little afraid of it or don't know where to start, then I have the perfect answer for you, Text Expander from Smile. Automation, Text Expander? Not exactly what you were expecting, but Text Expander is the very definition of automation for personal productivity. At the most basic level, and my personal favorite, is Text Expander's ability to let you create snippets of text that can be a few characters or a few pages in length, and then trigger them with an abbreviation. Snippets work for text, code, even graphics and links. Once you master the idea of snippets, which should take all of a few minutes, you can take it to the next level with fill-in-the-blank snippets to create custom forms and learn to insert clipboard content in a snippet. Want to go even more in-depth? Snippets can invoke multi-platform JavaScript, AppleScript, and shell scripts. Have multiple Macs or iOS devices? Text Expander can sync your snippets via iCloud so they're available everywhere you work, even to your iPhone and iPad, to make and keep you more productive no matter where you're working. That's the beauty of Text Expander. It's simple enough to use to really make a significant improvement in your productivity from the start, but you can grow with it as you find more ways to make it work for you. I use Text Expander virtually every time I sit down at the keyboard, which means I use it a lot. No, really, a lot. I think you will too, so I want you to visit smilesoftware.com to download their free trial and see what a difference Text Expander can make for you. It will take you minutes to get up and running, and you will see the benefits immediately. That's smilesoftware.com to improve your productivity with Text Expander. Get started right now. Thanks to Smile for their ongoing support of MacVoices. I also want to make sure we point out that this is, again, I'm using a B word, a bundle or a group of books that is headed for this. So I'll let you talk about just how Take Control of Upgrading to High Sierra fits in with the other books coming or out now from Take Control.
Yeah, so we have 3 books. There's Take Control of Upgrading to High Sierra, what we've just been talking about. Then there's Take Control of High Sierra. So the difference between these books is my book sort of gets you up to the point that you have installed High Sierra and now it's running fine. Shawley Sawyer McFarlane's book, Take Control of High Sierra, is what you do once you have it installed. This is like how to actually use it, and it's not just about the new features. It is about the new features, but it's about like generally how you get stuff done in High Sierra. So this is sort of the follow-up to what used to be a Take Control crash course, and it's just how to use High Sierra, how to get stuff done. Then Josh Centers has Take Control of iOS 11. So if you have an iPhone or iPad or iPod Touch or some combination of these, you'll be upgrading to iOS 11. His book will cover all that stuff. Now, all 3 of these books are coming out at the same time, and they're coming out before the actual final release of the operating systems that they talk about. We're doing this for a few reasons. One is that both of these operating systems are in public beta testing, have been in public beta testing for months, so lots of people are already using the beta versions, and lots of people have questions about them. They want to know how things work, they want to solve problems, and we want to give them that information. We also felt like if we waited to release these until the final versions were out, by that time, there would be both more competition and less interest because the web already is and will continue to be full of articles that address sort of little bits and pieces of this. So we wanted to get out in front of that a bit with 3 books that tell you the whole story. And because we wanted to release them before Apple has released the final version of these, we can only kind of tell you so much. We can tell you what we know so far, what's already public, but there are some things that aren't working yet in the current betas. There are some things that Apple has said will be in the final version that we haven't seen yet, or some things that just aren't, are currently broken or whatever. So we can only tell you what we know so far. So what we're saying is buy any or all of these books now. And then when the final OSs are released, we will have a free update for all 3 of these books that will bring you completely up to date with the real final version. And again, that will be free. Let's start with this. You can buy each book individually as a standalone book. My book is $10. Josh's book is $15. Shali's book is $15. So if you haven't purchased a previous version of any of these 3 books, $10 for mine, $15 for the other 2. If you have a previous version of any of our books, you can get any or all of the new books for half off. Okay? So my book will be $5 instead of 10. Shali's will be $7.50 instead of 15. Okay? So and it even means that if you have an old version of my book, you can still buy her book for half off. You can buy if you have any or all of the old books, you can buy any or all of the new books for half off. Okay, so we think that's a pretty sweet deal. We also have a special bundle price for all 3 books. If you don't already have any of the old books, and that is the number that I can't remember right now. I remember it was like somewhere in the $26 or $28 range. Like, it's a good deal. You're saving more than 30%. Let's say it's more than 30%. It's less than 50%. I don't remember what the number is, but you'll love it. So look it up on our website.
Yeah, and that's, of course, takecontrolbooks.com, where you'll find the number that Joe can't remember.
That's right.
Okay, good.
It's been a long day.
Yes, sorry. I understand. Joe, should we? I guess to wrap it up, should we be looking forward to High Sierra? Because I've seen plenty of people writing articles based on the betas, which I have mixed feelings about, but they're out there, and so you can't not see them. And there's some features both in High Sierra and iOS 11 that I'm kind of getting excited about. Nothing major, but just little improvements for picky little things that maybe have been bugging me for a while. Is that a fair assessment, you think, or is it just me?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed this in our Mac Group Detroit episode for those who listen to that. As you say, the things that are most interesting to me about High Sierra are the removal of annoyances, like you can now stop autoplay videos in Safari. That's lovely. Safari has better privacy controls. That's lovely. Of course, faster duplicating files in the Finder and stuff like that. That's lovely. So I think there are going to be things about High Sierra that people just find less annoying, and that's neat. The things where Apple is actually adding new features, like there's new stuff in Photos, but I don't do that much in Photos. I mean, personally, like I dump my photos in, I grab the photos I need, and like I don't spend a lot of time using the Photos app, so I don't really care too much about those features personally. There are some new things in some other places but like it's not a big update in terms of new features. There's stuff that will be less annoying now. That's nice. There are bugs that are being fixed. There are infrastructure changes that will improve things in the future and open up new possibilities for developers to make better games and better graphic stuff and VR and all these things. It's fine. Like for me, it's not something that I'm just dying to use these incredible new features. It's just like, no, that's nice. A solid upgrade, some new stuff. Nothing that is going to rock my world, but also nothing that's going to make me terribly sad. Nothing that's going to turn me into a green rage monster, as as sometimes happens.
And has happened in the past and has recently happened.
Recently, yeah.
And shall happen again, I'm sure. Well, let's hope not, but for the
there
sake
needs to be, do you have like a filter that you can just like turn my face green? And
yeah,
there ought to be a thing that you can do that.
I can probably drop it would look a little weird with the purple, but
not so much purple right now. I got we'll refresh that in a few days.
Okay.
The next time you see me, I think my hair will probably be purple, but we'll see.
Maybe green to make a statement.
Yeah, well, the thing about green is I associate that with the Joker. So the Joker has the green hair and the purple jacket.
Yeah.
And me, I am nothing if not serious.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You're
right. Excuse me. How could I forget? How could I forget? Hey, Joe, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for this. As always, thank you for those folks out there who need and want this guide.
Sure thing.
I hope more people take advantage of it than not, because I do think that there's some of the gotchas. And the APFS thing, it will be potentially a major issue. And if you have a concern over it, it's better to figure it out now ahead of time than try to go and look up articles when something went wrong. But for heaven's sakes, back up before you do any of this. Joe, we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Yes, you will.
All right. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices again. Take control of upgrading to High Sierra from Take Control Books, Mr. Joe Kissell. TakeControlBooks.com. Go get it. If you're interested, certainly go. We will certainly have Josh and Charlie on the show as soon as we can to talk about their books in a standalone fashion. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.